forward on this. Gets announced apparently. So welcome everyone to PIVOTPoint WNC's monthly mini conference series. Grateful that you're all here, made some time towards the end of your week and definitely towards the end of the day. I can appreciate that gesture, and it is most appreciated. And thank you, Kevin, for joining us and presenting Justice for Veterans, Promoting Healing Within the Justice System. I have known Kevin for a couple of years at this point. I've seen him present at more than one conference. I've thoroughly enjoyed both his insights and personal experience with what he's about to talk about, as well as just grabbing a hot chocolate from a shop downtown throughout the course of the week. We will be opening up some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. If Kevin has any direct questions for any of you based on his knowledge of your background and familiarity with the topic, then I certainly defer to his expertise. This is his show. And if you have any issues with your connections, you can feel free to, I believe everyone has the ability to chat me directly on the side, and I will stretch what limited IT knowledge and capabilities I have to address those issues as timely as possible. We really are grateful for you all to be here. This is a mini conference that our leadership team decided to set up a couple of months ago to just have a much smaller, more intimate conversation about some topics that are near and dear to not only our community here in Buncombe County, but also our programming as a community service delivery organization here in town. So I appreciate your support of the topic, and I will now turn it over to Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks, everyone. I was about to say good morning because there is with us a special, well, we have several special guests, but I am excited we have with us Judge Pope. And the Honorable Judge Pope is the founder of the Buncombe County Veterans Treatment Court. So I am usually sitting in a virtual room around 7:30, 8 a.m. Friday mornings. And I always get to say good morning. So this is switching it up, 7 p.m. We also have another amazing guest, a graduate of the Buncombe County Veterans Treatment Court, who is with us here today. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk a little bit about promoting healing within the justice system. I'll probably do that for about 30 minutes, maybe 35. And then I'm going to hand it over to both Judge Pope, and then I'm going to introduce one of our esteemed veterans, Travis Koenig. So hopefully I can screen share. Let's see. All right, everyone see that? Sweet. Awesome. So my name's Kevin Rumley, as was already mentioned, and I am a person in long-term recovery, which means I haven't used any substances, opioids, or alcohol in the last 11 years. I am also, as you can tell from my long hair, a Marine veteran. Goes without saying. But so before we dive in to our objectives, I do want to first acknowledge this is important. This is something that as a program, it's critical that we name. So we are the Veterans Treatment Court of Buncombe County, but we recognize as a program that we exist in what is one of the oldest forms of white supremacy, which is the justice system. Since really the beginning of America, the justice system has been a tool to maintain the status quo. The justice system has been this force which has perpetuated these disparities within our communities. So we name that. We also name that we are anti-racist. So we cannot anymore as a program simply be colorblind. We know the consequences of operating as a colorblind program. We know that there are differences in outcome based on the color of your skin, based on the communities that you were born, and based on hundreds of years of history. This shapes the reality that we live in today. And so as a program, we always start by acknowledging that and acknowledging that we are anti-racist. So our objectives today, going to talk a little bit about what a veteran is. Seems pretty basic, but actually there's a lot more to it in this context. We're going to briefly go over the challenges that lead to veterans interfacing with the justice system. Why are they being arrested? What are the challenges, really the determinant forces that lead to their going to jail and to prison? We want to talk about the barriers to healing and reintegration into the community. Then hopefully we can spend a lot of time on what is this thing called a problem-solving court, or restorative justice models, or the Veterans Treatment Court, and who came up with it? What are we doing it? Why are we doing it? Is it just a bunch of well-intentioned people putting their heads together and hoping for the best? Within that court, we're going to talk about this idea between a client's self-determination and the balance of control within our system. And that is really the continued focus of our work. Every single day, as a justice system program, we're empowering our veterans to self-determine their future. We are not saying this is the only path, but at the same time, they're on probation, they have accountability. So we're going to talk about that balance. And then NADCP best practices, and that is the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. Let's see. All right. So veteran backdrop. Who is a veteran? I am a veteran. I served a total of 4 years. But a veteran, according to the VA, requires 2 years of service. To enter into our program, the Veterans Treatment Court, we consider a veteran any person that has served at least 1 day of active duty time. So that means they went to their training, they went to boot camp, and their specific MOS training, their military occupancy training, and then they had 1 day of active duty. That's a veteran in our book. We found that female veterans within detention were not reporting to staff that they identified as a veteran. It was just a statistic that we noticed, hey, why are the numbers so low for female veterans involved in the justice system on any level? And what we found was many female veterans didn't feel worthy of that title, a veteran, right? So what we had to do within the jail system is anytime a person enters, instead of asking, are you a veteran? The question is now, have you served in the armed forces, reserves? And we list out the branches, right? And then we've seen the number of female veterans increase. So it's an interesting, really a faulty stigma that has continued and been internalized by many female veterans that have served. So the backdrop: 1 in 6 global war and terrorism veterans have a substance misuse problem. 1 in 5 veterans experience post-traumatic stress, and even higher for Vietnam veterans, 30%. We are seeing more and more traumatic brain injuries. So 22% of the wounds from the most recent conflicts are brain injuries. And a lot of those are stemming from just the concussive blast of improvised explosive devices. These are monstrous, really bombs that are created with C4 packed together with razor blades and all sorts of things, but they have grown so enormous that just the sheer movement of air can cause concussion and traumatic brain injury. Let's see, less than 1% of our population has served in the armed forces. And in Buncombe County, we have a great many veterans here, over 19,000. At the same time, we also have the highest rate of veteran homelessness in the entire state. A lot of reasons for this. We are a resource-rich community. I'd say we have the greatest VA in the nation. But yeah, unfortunately, that is a reality that we are seeing in our community, is the rate of veteran homelessness. I won't spend too much time on these statistic slides, but I did want to highlight on this far left side, you can see North Carolina veteran suicides, and just the dark blue, you can see it's 65.7% of suicides in North Carolina involve a firearm, and this is of veterans. This makes sense. Veterans are trained and proficient at the skill of using a firearm. That's our job. In the Marine Corps, every Marine is a marksman. So every Marine, regardless of whatever your job may be, even if you're a cook, a computer technician, you are trained in the art of killing with a firearm. So this is a very real challenge for us as clinicians, supporting and preventing suicide, especially by firearms. And you can see 65.7% in North Carolina compared to the national average use of firearms, which is only 50%. So it's much higher in North Carolina. So co-occurring PTSD and substance use amongst veterans. So over 20% of veterans with PTSD also have a substance use diagnosis. We know combat veterans with post-traumatic stress and alcohol dependence tend to be binge drinkers, and we recognize this as a maladaptive coping strategy. 1 out of every 3 veterans seeking VA treatment for substance use also has PTSD. And 1 in 10 returning soldiers seen in the VA from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars have a problem with alcohol and other substances. So these are pretty staggering numbers. I always put this in here. It's just really a nod, because we have a lot of focus on the veterans that are deployed, the veterans that have gone through really the combat trauma. But while a veteran, male or female, is deployed, is engaged in the theater of war, at home are the caregivers. And the caregivers are truly America's hidden heroes. They are also a changing demographic. So you can see the orange is post 9/11 caregivers, and the dynamics changing. So not only are they the caregiver for the veteran when they return home, but they're more likely to be employed. You can see that bottom line. So caregivers are employed, they're younger, age 30 or younger, and have less of a support network. And most of the time it's the spouse. So greater stress, greater need, less support, even stretched more thin. So I just put that in there because truly they are America's hidden heroes. So some of the kind of determinant forces that lead to the justice system. There's a big RAND study, and you could dive into this study, pull tons of information, because it just surveyed so many service members. You can just see a quick snapshot. I don't even remember why originally I pulled this, but you can see by branch, probable depression rates, generalized anxiety disorder, probable PTSD. And these are just high numbers. So there is clearly a theme here. We know this is the theme. Another theme that we're seeing, and this has been a very real reality within our court throughout the years, is military sexual trauma and males that have that are survivors of military sexual trauma. I think the number I last heard was 1 in every 4 female veterans and 1 in every 100 male veterans experience military sexual trauma. These are veterans within the justice system, split up by prison and jail. So prison is actually after you've been charged, then sentenced, boom, you're serving your time. That is where prison is. And you can see the greatest percent of offenses are violent sexual offenses. Those are veterans. 35% of veterans in prison are there for violent sexual offenses. Compared to jail, you can see the greatest percentage is property crimes. And you can, other violent crimes for prison, drug crimes for prison, property crimes. And then at the bottom, you can see the same report noted that 2/3 of the veterans in prison and jail were discharged from the military between 1974 and 2000. We are seeing that. We're definitely seeing the consequences of unaddressed suffering from Vietnam. So for years, these veterans suffered and it wasn't acknowledged as a society. PTSD wasn't even created in the DSM until the Vietnam conflict. So we are now, all these years later, still coping. And the justice system is really just this, it's kind of the end of the line, really. There are all of these support systems and boom, the justice system is just truly a snapshot that a person's best efforts have not been successful. And I don't remember the number, Judge, you may remember this, but for every time a person is arrested for an offense, there's evidence that they have done that actual offense on average of 33 times before that, right? So it's not like they just committed a single violent sexual offense and that was when they were caught. These are very much behaviors, learned behaviors, as was the case in my own life with my substance misuse. Also interesting is, let's see, we have found within our program, and this is supported by research, that violent offenders are just as successful within recovery courts as nonviolent offenders. So that is powerful in knowing change is possible. And so we approach the Veterans Court knowing that. We know these challenges are very real. We know that our veterans are coming home facing increased PTSD, increased substance use disorder, and we want to support them on their journey. So we have to look at them individually, connect them to the appropriate resources. Every veteran's journey is unique. You're going to hear from Travis in a little bit. His experience in combat, while very unique, is also very close to mine, which is this universality of trauma, the unspeakable. This is a picture of me in 2004. So I joined the Marines right out of high school. My father was a Marine. My grandfather served. Come from a long line of service. And when I was in Iraq, I was with 3-7 Lima. And we were on the Syrian border. We ended up being completely annihilated by IEDs, improvised explosive device. Every single day, we were destroyed by them. We ended up losing 26 Marines out of 100. It was a small outpost. And there was so much destruction. About a year after I was injured, the Commandant of the Marine Corps pulled all these Marines from the Syrian border. So any effort that had been achieved, any successes, were completely thrown out. And it became what was to become the stronghold for ISIS. So that was 2004. The same children that we were storming in with full battle rattle and tanks and helicopters and really looking back, destroying their community. These kids were throwing rocks at us as Marines. Years later, they grew up, and this is where ISIS was. So I was blown up by an IED. I lost my best friend, Chris Wasser, in the explosion. The shrapnel blew through my body, blew out both my legs, my arms, shrapnel through my eyes. And here I am dying on the Syrian border. And the corpsman comes running up to me and shoots me up with morphine. And in that moment, I went from a state of total terror to peace and serenity. And every cell in my body said, "You are okay." And that is what opioids gave me. And I had no idea that that was the beginning of a 7-year-long struggle with addiction to opioids, which would become heroin and alcohol. So I was fortunate. I had an amazing support system. I had a strong family in my life that, even though I found myself addicted to heroin, I had lost everything, every relationship, everything that was important in my life was gone. I still had my brother here in Asheville who did not give up on me. And he took me probably 10 times to the VA hospital where I would do an inpatient stay, or I was in DC where I was involuntarily committed. I had truly lost sense of reality. It was gone from my world. But I had something called recovery capital, which was my brother. So we see in the lives of the veterans that we work with, this thing that actually can be quantified, recovery capital. We can look at a person, look at all of these factors, and statistically say there is X likelihood that you are going to either be successful in your efforts or you're going to continue to struggle. So I don't know why, for whatever reason, the 11th time I went inpatient, something clicked. And I was fortunate. My justice involvement was minimum, was a bunch of misdemeanors. So my DUI, misdemeanor. Every time I also experienced white privilege. I experienced, I guess, veteran privilege as well. I was pulled over in South Carolina and was out of my mind. Would much rather, at that time, I didn't have the courage to commit suicide, but having lost 26 of my brothers, I didn't know how to live. And I was pulled over and I had a big bag of cocaine, took me to jail, and I just sat there. And about 6 hours later, the officer came in, pulled me out, took me to the bathroom, and he held up the bag of cocaine and he threw it into the trash, flushed it, and said, "Get out of here." And I was wearing my USMC shirt. I don't know why. That would have been a serious felony on my charge that I have not ever had to live with or deal with. I'm blessed in that way. Many of the veterans that come into our program have a lifetime of suffering, have a lifetime of maladaptive coping skills, much like I did with my substance use. These coping skills are not working anymore. And I always like to name that they did work. They did work at a time, which is why we use them, right? I don't want to say alcohol worked for a bit. I think alcohol in a lot of ways saved my life. Opioids saved my life when I was on the battlefield until they didn't anymore. So introducing the Veterans Court. This started in 2015 because of Judge Pope. Judge Pope, who's here today, really is the reason we are one of 4 courts in North Carolina and the only superior court in North Carolina that supports veterans. I always share that we don't have a veterans court to honor veterans. That is not the reason we have this program. We have this program because veterans achieve better outcomes when they have other veterans in their care, and it's veteran-specific care. So I always say that. You can see our mission here for the Veterans Court: promote public safety through accountability, responsibility, assist and support veterans as they move through a coordinated effort among the court and community-based veteran services, while improving quality of life. These are the main goals of our program. We want to reduce the rates of recidivism. We want to increase access to mental health and behavioral health services. We want to provide holistic treatment support, which is why we partner with amazing organizations like PIVOTPoint, because we know there's not a single pathway to recovery. There are many pathways. We want to increase community engagement, decrease patterns of isolation. We want to connect veterans. Every veteran in our program gets a mentor. We want to bolster their recovery capital. And I'd encourage everyone to look into that on their own. I don't think I dive into recovery capital in this presentation. And then ultimately, if a veteran completes our program, they're eligible to have their charges dismissed, as long as it's not a DUI, because those are statutes and we can't. Tell every veteran when I meet them in jail, when they're contemplating, hey, do I want to go to prison, just go serve 3 years, or do I want to go into this 18-month program called Veterans Court? I always share it is easier to go to prison. Change is truly difficult. So we are 18-month program, 5 phases. And I'll save some of that for Travis, who's actually been through it. Ooh. Okay. So this is a presentation that I gave at in a previous setting, and they wanted some questions of the audience, but I like keeping these in here. So here's a true or false question. Within the Veterans Court, do you think a veteran's willingness to change determines their success in the court? All right, so the answer is false. We do not need a veteran to arrive saying, I am so ready for this. This is everything that I need. Let's do this, right? That means they'd be totally ready to change. They're in the action stage. What do I do? I'm going to transform my life. That doesn't matter. We don't need that. They can actually be quite reluctant and pre-contemplative about this whole journey of change. Another question, true or false, violent offenders are just as successful as nonviolent offenders? Already talked about that. Violent offenders are just as successful. Another question I had up here, who determines admission into the Veterans Court? So we have the judge on the team. We have myself. We have the district attorney. We have the Veterans Court team, where we're always talking about this. And we're all kind of giving input. But ultimately, it's the district attorney. The district attorney is the one who identifies if they're legally appropriate and if they meet high risk, high need criteria. All right. Okay, here's a great question. So in diversion courts, like Veterans Treatment Court, we get a referral for a veteran, and let's say they meet legal criteria. In our program, you need to have a felony, right? Because you have to, if you're going to be giving 18 months of your life to the Veterans Court, you have to have a charge that warrants it. So you wouldn't want a low-level misdemeanor where you serve a day in jail versus 18 months. So we get a referral, And what we used to do, we used to sit around a table and say, here is a veteran. His name is Travis Koenig. Travis Koenig is a combat Marine. Here are his charges. And you know what? He's really motivated. This is how we do it. I think we need to have Travis in our program. Well, we learned that anytime you do a case-by-case decision-making process, you actually perpetuate inequality. This is an opportunity for implicit bias to manifest. So what we had to do is truly solidify our policy. Had to make it very clear. Do they meet criteria? Are they high risk, high need? That is it. Another thing we've learned is that individuals from the BIPOC community are more likely to be upcharged and overcharged. So I commit an offense similar to a young Black male my age. I'm going to receive a misdemeanor, and he's more likely to receive a felony. There's a quote by Michelle Alexander that says 1 in 3 Black males are involved in the carceral system, that is prison, jail, probation, or parole. And yet we talk about it as a criminal justice issue and not a racial justice issue. And I think that's a potent quote because it's very, very true. So anyways, the answer to this is false. Diversion courts for increased equity and access, case-by-case decisions do not generate the best outcome. You do not want case-by-case. You want strict policy, clear. So I have a picture of the Giving Tree, one of my favorite books from Shel Silverstein, and I have 4 actually. So the first picture is an example of inequality. You can see the tree is bending and it is dropping apples to 1, and all of the apples are leaning that way. So inequality, the unequal access to opportunity. The apples are this opportunity. Okay, so what is equality? Equality is evenly distributed tools and assistance. Well, that's great. You can see both now of these kids have an equal access to tools. They both have ladders. But unfortunately, the tree is still bending. And I see the tree as the system, the structures, right? So sure, we provided both of them the tools and assistance, but outcomes are still different because ultimately the tree is crooked and the apples are leaning. All right, so what is equity? Equity is a custom tool that can identify and address specific inequality. So we identified in this system, the tree is leaning. The apples are going a certain way, and he needed a higher ladder to even get the few that were available to him. So what is the last one to us? Justice. And this is what we're truly trying to achieve, and it is not easy. But justice is fixing the system to offer equal access to tools and opportunity. And so here you can see that the system, the tree, is actually being straightened. That is the truly hard work. But that is justice. And so we as a program are working to achieve that. And a small part of that is recognizing that many of our veterans are in the justice system, not because of criminogenic behavior, but because of unaddressed suffering. And that to me is the justice work at hand. And many veterans, self-included, have internalized the shame and the belief that I'm not good enough. I had a tribe, I had my community, I had a purpose in the Marine Corps. And when I got out, I had none of that. Absolutely nothing. Except I was blown up and I had opioids. So justice is truly supporting and healing the wounds. So I'm going to do 2 more slides and then I'm going to turn it over It's 7:40. This is kind of the guiding principle of what we do in our court. I'm happy to get into the minutia of the phases and, how we use contingency management and really just simple behavior modification of behavior effect. But this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to support our veterans to find a sense of safety in their own bodies, because trauma is the opposite of safety in your own body. And so if we can both create safety and reciprocity to see and be seen, that's the foundation of this that we can build. Let's see, amazing book. My grandmother's hands, would encourage everyone to read it, but it's just this idea of healing happening on a continuum. It is not a binary. Same as substance misuse, right? It is not black and white, but is a long, long journey of healing. And that's how we work hard in Veterans Court to really see healing as that journey, and not just you're either in recovery or you're not. You're either healed or you're not, because there's really no destination. Let's see. Here are all the dimensions of recovery capital. You can look into that. Okay. I'll fly through these. NADCP, I brought up earlier, how are we guided, right? Who decides what we do? I told you how we used to sit at a table in 2015 and talk about each veteran referral, and it was a big discussion. And then we had a training by NADCP. They actually came in and presented, hey, here are the best practices that we have been studying for years, and we've come up with 10 key components that your program needs to follow in order to generate positive outcomes. And these promote our evidence-based practices. We are informed by them, and this is really the crux of what we do. So we integrate, as you can see, number one, alcohol and other drug treatment services, use a non-adversarial approach, including prosecution, right? Normally prosecution is the one attacking, trying to get someone in jail. We eligible participants are identified early and promptly placed in the program. We provide access to a continuum of alcohol, drug, and other treatment. Abstinence is monitored by frequent alcohol and other drug testing. We have a coordinated effort that governs treatment, our responses to noncompliance. It's actually a graduated response. So if a veteran enters, we understand they're not going to change a lifetime of behaviors overnight. It takes time. And so we slowly graduate our responses and increase them. And for every behavior that we don't want, so drinking or associating with a known user, misuser, we then not only provide a sanction, but a therapeutic response. And that has to happen. And I'll say an example is drinking. We have to ask ourselves, what is a sanction response? What's a therapeutic response? But also, was their behavior in a distal goal or a proximal goal? And proximal is what you can do right now. And turns out right now you can only do in early recovery, not a lot. You can show up, you can be honest, and you can try, right? That is proximal right now, regardless of the background. We know a veteran can show up, be honest, and try. The distal goals are, more of the long-term, maintaining a job, right? Getting their license, kind of all of those. And so we are, and the judge is really expecting just show up, be honest, and try. Not perfection. And if you're honest about it, then the judge is going to reward that. So those are the 10 We have monitoring, sorry, we got to 8. Monitoring, evaluation, measure the achievement of program goals, gauge effectiveness. 9, it's a interdisciplinary education. So that is something we're always engaged in. And then 10, forging partnerships with community, public agencies, and organizations. So we probably have 30 different partnerships involved in the Veterans Court, and it's all to support that individual veteran. So I'm sorry, I don't see anyone on the screen. I'm going to turn it over to Judge Pope because I want to ask Judge about how you came to create the Veterans Court and how, as a judge, the Veterans Court is different than the traditional justice system that you have seen your entire life.
Well, I became involved with Veteran Treatment Court. I was reading an article in one of the bar publications about a judge in Buffalo, New York, Judge Robert Russell. And he had a young man in front of him who was stooped over and was charged with a serious offense. And he was trying to talk to this man and get some type of communication going between them so he could know what type of person he was dealing with. And he asked if he had had any military service. And the man said yes. And immediately he stood up. He straightened up his back, and the judge noticed this. And although the judge was not a veteran, the judge had a clerk that was a veteran, and he took a recess and asked the clerk to talk to this veteran. And he learned in talking to the veteran through the clerk and individually that this veteran had pride in his service. He had discipline in his service. He had goals in his service to our country. And Judge Russell said, I can use this to create a veteran treatment court, which, as Kevin said, is non-adversarial. And that is the most important part of all of this. The non-adversarial treatment of a veteran or any defendant is of utmost importance. I practiced law 28 years before I was appointed to the bench by Governor Hunt. I have been a judge now for 21 years, and our court system is a total failure. Our criminal justice system does not work. And the reason I say that is because the system is a total system to intimidate, to persecute, to ridicule, to keep a person down by submitting them to prison, by not providing them with education, with failing to recognize their mental health needs, sometimes failing to recognize their physical needs. And the easy thing to do is the revolving door of putting someone in prison. And prison is the most educational source to promote criminal behavior that I've ever seen. They receive 3 square meals a day. They have all the necessities of life. They watch TV all they want to. They play cards with each other and exercise and have great physical fitness programs. And on top of everything else, when they're not doing the foregoing, they're talking to each other and they're saying, I shouldn't have done what I did. I got caught. Tell me how I can improve my criminal behavior. And when you have a situation like that, you are promoting recidivism. And in the practice of law and in as a judge, I know that anytime I go into a criminal court, there is a distinct possibility that the person in front of me will reoffend within 3 years of his probation or of his prison sentence. And he will be back in front of me or another judge. And that's very sad, because we're not doing anything for that person, except we're giving him a felony record, which means that he can't get a job, he can't support his family, he can't support himself. And so what is he going to do? He's going to go out and continue to do what he's always done, commit criminal offenses. And what Kevin told you a while ago is that for every time a person gets caught, whether it's a driving while impaired or whether it's a breaking and entering, there are more than 30 times that person has committed that same offense previously and has been successful in not getting caught. So if you go to Las Vegas and you have those kind of odds, you're going to put everything on a bet that you have, because you're probably going to win. So, Kevin, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my take on it.
No, thank you, Your Honor. And that's exactly it. Is the prison system doesn't work. We cannot arrest our way out of really the problems that we face as a nation, and as discussed today, for our veterans. Our veterans are suffering. Their maladaptive coping strategies are not working, and that is what leads to the justice system. So we are an opportunity. Now I want to ask Travis. So Travis is a fellow Marine, and as much as you're comfortable, Travis, you can kind of share about your journey through the Veterans Court, but I'd be interested in how your previous interactions with the justice system versus the Veterans Court, kind of how that's worked for you, right? How is the Veterans Court like other justice systems, and how is it different? But yeah, I don't know if you can. And Travis, you may be frozen.
Yeah, it just froze me, so I did not catch any of that. I'm terribly sorry.
Hey, no worries. Want to turn the floor over to you.
Okay, so a little about me. My name's Travis. I am a Marine Corps, Iraq and Afghanistan veteran. I was a lead machine gunner and did mortuary affairs in both Iraq and Afghanistan during the recovery of fatalities due to IEDs, to blasts, to being shot, whatever have you. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2011 and traveled around, could never really find a home. In 2016, I moved back to Waynesville, where I'm from. Started working as a chef, and that's when everything from overseas, all the problems that I never got help with, really started kicking in, and received my first DUI in 2018. Turned around a year later, 2019, received a second one. Was going through the trial process, and at this point, I'd already had several encounters with the local police force, most of whom I went to high school with, and didn't have a real good look in court to start with. And I reached out to Kevin because in my county, Veterans Treatment Court is not a thing. No judge was able to tell me any information about it. No lawyer was able to tell me any information about it. And so I took my case from district court to superior court. The judge in superior court said, "Mr. Koenig, I believe that you are a danger to yourself and a danger to society, I believe that the best place for you is in the judicial system. I believe that if we send you to prison, that's where you need to be with your past and with your violence towards law enforcement. I believe that that's your only chance. I believe that the Veterans Treatment Court would not be beneficial to you. And I said, okay, Judge. I said, I'm going to still keep going. I'm going to keep trying. And Kevin showed up, and Kevin spoke to him in the way that whatever Kevin does. And he said, I'm going to give you a chance. And 18 months later, I'm graduated with no bad remarks, thankfully. But the thing that saved me was the structure of the court. First, they helped me with mental health, got me involved into the VA, got me talking to a therapist, to a counselor. We have Kay and Catherine, who are phenomenal. And then, like, the thing that I don't think people understand about Veterans Treatment Court is it's not a hugging court. I very few times in my life have I ever been held to the amount of accountability that I am now. I mean, you're reporting to probation twice a week. You're taking 2-year analysis a week. You are involved in 3 to 4 group meetings a week. And every time that you slide or you lose accountability, you're either getting continued community service, or you're having to make up groups, or if it's something that Judge Pope Kevin says, hey, this person's messing up, this could be detrimental to their health, then there's extended guidelines, and that could go as far as inpatient treatment. You could lose a whole phase, so you would be restarting the phase all over again. And one thing I've learned is from the veterans that's happened to is it's not something that you let happen more than once. And the underlying thing that I took from Veterans Treatment Court is you have all these ramifications, you have all these guidelines, but it's more so the brotherhood and the sisterhood that you get while you're in there, and the accountability that you have for each other. Like, if you're in a veterans group, like we all have VA groups that we attend, whether it's mindfulness or substance abuse, usually we're 3 to 4 deep in those groups. So if one person is not there, you have 2 or 3 people texting you like, hey, where are you at? Are you okay? And just that sense of camaraderie, it helps.
Thank you, Travis. And so Travis brought up something I think is kind of the overarching goal of the program, which is supporting veterans to find a sense of purpose again. And the quote from Sebastian Junger in his book Tribe is, while veterans are willing to die for their country, they return home to find they're not sure how to live for it. So we have this court, and I am not the purveyor of purpose. Judge Pope is not either. We cannot give the gift of purpose to our veterans as much as we'd love that. The VA cannot gift purpose to a veteran. PIVOTPoint cannot gift purpose to a veteran. But what have been blessed to see is that all of these things coming together, call it recovery capital, all of that really empowers a veteran to then create their own purpose. It could be just in their job. It could be the purpose is being a better father. It could be just being a better brother, sister, whatever it is. But to reduce the rates of suicide, we know there are 20 veteran suicides a day. To reduce that, we need a sense of purpose. And what I've seen Travis do over his 18 months is find a new sense of purpose. And what he's been through is truly staggering trauma. It is, and I was blown up. What's wild. So I have very visible wounds on my legs. You can see this. And someone like Travis comes back, and if you look at him, you say, hey, he's A-okay, good to go, right? But those invisible wounds are there, and that connection, that sense of tribe was gone. And so how can he create that? And the real challenge is, how do you create it once I'm not there and Judge Pope's not there and we're all not there? And that's something Travis is doing. So I just want to honor Travis for that. And Judge, I wanted to ask another question. So you see a lot of veterans come in front of you, Judge, with all different backgrounds. Veterans like Travis that have multiple combat deployments, that have survived so much. And then you have veterans also that have never deployed, and a completely different background story. How do you engage them where they're at and really support them as a judge? What does that look like?
Well, the important thing is that everyone took an oath. Every veteran took an oath to protect this country, to honor and serve the people of this country and protect us. And so whether that veteran was deployed or whether he was not deployed, or whether he had a easy tour of duty, that doesn't matter to me at all. What I want to do is meet that veteran on his ground, what he is facing, what the issues are, what criminal conduct he has allegedly committed, and meet him there and take it from there. The only thing that I demand of every veteran is honesty. And I give that in my initial comments to the veteran when he comes into the court. I also tell them, just like you do, that this is going to be the hardest thing they've probably ever done in their entire life, to face up to their own humanity. And so whether a veteran has been deployed or whether he has not been deployed doesn't bother or affect me one way or the other. I'm there for the veteran. I'm there to learn about him. I'm there to learn about his family. I'm there to learn about his needs and what we can do to help him recover from whatever trauma he has sustained.
Thank you, Judge. And that is what we get to see every court. We really do. So I see it's 8:03, and I know there's a structure that Matthew had mentioned in the beginning. I wanted to, if we could go around the room, could introduce ourselves, and open the floor to this questions, discussion. And so we have Judge Pope here. We have Travis Koenig, who's lived it, and really probably the best source for this. Does that happen, Matthew?
Oh, I was just turning my camera back on. Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I just wanted to, I guess, jump in. I wasn't sure if your pauses were because you were waiting for me to jump in or not. So Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Judge Pope, and thank you, Travis, for sharing your experience with this process. This is part of the journey. I think it's a great idea, a great opportunity to kind of open it up and give everybody an opportunity to ask direct questions. Certainly want to keep this as a respectful and safe platform to have a productive conversation. Certainly curiosities abound, I would imagine, but I would like to just reiterate that this is as much as anything else that PIVOTPoint is involved in, as much as anything else that the Veterans Treatment Court and the individuals involved in that program are involved in, this is as much a part of healing and growth for all of us. So I'd like to invite that intention into the last 25 minutes of this. I'll kick it off and just quickly reintroduce myself and then stop talking. My name is Matthew Nanis. I'm the executive director and founder of PIVOTPoint WNC. We provide therapeutic adventure work to the recovery community, as well as those assessed as at risk of that type of a life. We work with the Veterans Treatment Court as part of their diversion programming. We work with the Department of Juvenile Justice here in Buncombe County in a similar fashion. We are supported by the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council of Buncombe County and are exploring partnerships and collaborations with, I'm pretty sure, every other diversion program that Buncombe County has. Our goal is not to fix anybody. Our goal is, and I certainly do appreciate all of the quotes that you shared, but our goal is to provide facilitation, to reintroduce our participants to themselves, to gain through somatic awareness a relationship, a healthy relationship with their own experience in their body in this moment, that they might leverage that into healthy and productive relationships with the people about them, with their peers, and then with the community at large. We do that in the natural environment. We do that on the trails, on the mountains, on the rivers, in and around Western North Carolina. And yeah, just grateful to have a different platform to cultivate some connection within the community. So I appreciate y'all being here, and I will stop talking and we can do a popcorn thing if you're okay with that, just for efficiency's sake. So I'm gonna just pick a name, and if you want to check in, that'd be fantastic. And if you would like to pass, that's totally reasonable as well. So I'm gonna say Nate, if you'd like to check in.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass. I feel like this was an exposure to the system. I worked some veterans courses with Outward Bound, and that felt like a preventative program free for them to go on, and gained a lot of wisdom into the population, but feeling like there's more fruitful conversations to be had.
I'll say something if that's okay. I'm Amanda Bazan. I'm a VA employee with the geriatric clinic. So I work with a lot of elderly folks dealing with memory loss, etc. I just don't know where this statement or question is going to lead to, but I just wondered if there's any support or guidance to those folks that are supporting the people who are going through treatment court. So in other words, you had mentioned a brother who was there, for you, Kevin, that kept coming with you or helping guide you, or, so there's always maybe or hopefully going to be, I don't know, maybe not, but spouse, brother, sister, mother who is really invested in trying to be supportive, but, do they get support? Do you ever share, like, how do you have healthy boundaries and still good self-care to be able to continue to give that support without burning out yourself? You want to be there for someone, but you also don't necessarily want them to waste or wear away, wear themselves down over time. So I just was curious about that.
Yeah, thank you. And that it's a very real challenge. And in our mission statement, we put the veteran and family, and we have talked about that, like, what is family? A lot of our veterans don't have family, but it is that new support system. And we're lucky at the Asheville VA to have the caregiver support. And I know that the judge makes that a central theme. The judge always says this, and I love the quote, but he says, give me the 5 people you surround yourself with, and I can tell you who you are. But the judge does a great job of really exploring the people around our veterans. And that kind of goes back to this recovery capital. It is what you just brought up is a dimension of that. And I didn't do a good job presenting on recovery capital tonight, but it is such an emerging central theme that we can look at a veteran, look at these dimensions, what you just mentioned. And if there is this space where they don't have that, then we with some certainty can say, hey, this is a trouble area that can lead to recidivism or return to use or misuse.
Amanda, I think that's a great question. And what I always try to do is to learn who the veteran's family is. And one thing that we've learned is that some of these families are so alienated from the veteran because of the veteran's conduct that they don't want to have anything to do with the veteran. But then when we show them what we're trying to do, we bring them in to the court. I actually ask them to come to court and sit with the veteran, be there and say things for the veteran on their behalf. Another aspect of it is for the children of the veteran. Many of these veterans will come into court and they'll say, Judge, we talk about goals a lot, and when we go through the phases, and the veterans will say, I haven't seen my daughter in 8 years. She's 10 years old now, and I would really like to see her. And so by helping them we get legal services for them to make contact, to get some type of visitation and build up that relationship with that child. That helps the veteran immensely. We've had veterans that have 16, 17-year-old children that they haven't seen in about that time. And yet they're able to reunite with these children, have visitation with them, go to family reunions. All that is very important. And a little serendipity to all this is that sometimes I know of one case where the father was very active in supporting the veteran. The mother could have cared less. They were separated, of course. And in the end, both of them came together and were talking to me. I give out my phone number, my cell phone number to them. They can call me. I give out my personal email. They can call me or send me a text message or an email anytime they want to. Tell me another judge in North Carolina that will give out, a cell phone number. It just doesn't happen. But if I feel like I'm open to these people, they can come in and they can tell me this. We had one veteran that had pending charges in Tennessee. I said, I'll talk to the judge over there if the judge is willing to talk to me about this veteran. I can tell that judge what he's done in veteran treatment court. Anything I can do, whether it's normal to do it or whether it's abnormal to do it in veteran treatment court, everything in veteran treatment court is designed to help that veteran. I'll bend over backwards and do anything I can to help that veteran. And we leave no stone unturned. Kevin talked about the therapeutic sanction and what to do when somebody really messes up. We spend more time on therapeutic sanction to find out why this veteran resorted to drinking than we do on whether or not he drank or how much he drank or what his blood alcohol content was. We know that they're going to relapse, so that's a given. So we take that in and we figure out, okay, what's the cause? What's the effect on the veteran? And what can we do to find out that trigger point that caused that veteran to relapse? Address the trigger point, and find out that, and we can go from there. But I want to include everybody in the whole thing. It's the capital for each veteran that's important to me.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Well, I'm going to popcorn it then to, if that's okay. Roxanne.
How did I know you was gonna call my name? I just felt it. My name is Roxanne, and I'm from Charlotte. I actually work at a opioid treatment agency here in Charlotte. And first, let me say thank you guys for your service. We really appreciate it. It's got to be hard, coming back from, serving, time, well, serving active duty and having to come back and not feel appreciated, So I just feel like, that you guys are great. I actually work with a lot of veterans, and the agency that I work at, it's in a predominantly Black community. So I find that a lot of Black people in general, it's hard to get them into opioid treatment. But my dog wants to go out too. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's hard to get them into treatment, and then when you get them in there, as a matter of fact, I like half of my population are veterans. So I love working with them because they're so open to, they want to change, they want to change the behavior, but, they just don't know how. I think this treatment court is wonderful. I used to actually work for TASC in Raleigh. And so I worked with a lot of probationaries who were mandated to go into treatment, who were veterans. And this program would have been wonderful for them, So, I mean, I just appreciate what you all are doing, and just keep up the good work.
Roxanne, you brought up a very good point in that we can accept veterans from all over North Carolina. Primarily, we're responsible for 20 counties west of Catawba County, but we can accept veterans from anywhere in North Carolina to come into our program. And we bring them in, we get them housing, and all they have to do is have a condition of their probation that they attend and complete veteran treatment court. So if you have any veterans that are facing criminal charges, please be sure to tell them about the veteran treatment court in Buncombe County. The other important thing about it is that we will do anything we can to promote other veteran treatment courts. We started working with Catawba County in 2016, and it wasn't until April 29th this year that they were able to start their first have their first veteran treatment court. But we go all over. We have created a foundation not only for veteran treatment court clients, but we've also created a veteran for other veterans to get them housing, to get them jobs, license, whatever we can do for them. So it's a multifaceted thing, and anything we can do to help you, just call me or Kevin and we'll help you.
Sure thing. And I think this would be a wonderful program in Mecklenburg County. I'm surprised that they don't have something like that. Well, I think they have the drug court.
They do.
but, you know, just to, specific for veterans, that would be. I'm gonna go mute now.
Hey, thank you, Roxanne.
Kevin, I had one thing that I wanted to add.
Yeah, brother.
As far as Matt and Pivot Point go, I've had the opportunity as a veteran in Veterans Treatment Court, and now being out of Veterans Treatment Court, to still get the opportunity to help Matt and them. And I just wanted to say, as a veteran of Veterans Treatment Court, how thankful we were for Pivot Point, because having been around the other veterans that have had the opportunity to do that, especially the veterans that are at the VRQ or at First and Blue Ridge, just how thankful they are to not have the everyday pressure and guidelines to be able to get out in nature and speak on things that they won't speak about in VA groups, or that they're not going to tell their counselors, just to have just for them to be able to provide the freedom of mind to get veterans out of the tenacity of every day, and just to have that freedom to express themselves if they want to. And if they don't want to, then we're still hiking through the woods and nothing else matters. So thank you, Matt, Bex, Wendy, all you guys at Pivot Point. Thank you so much.
It's genuinely our pleasure. I appreciate that, Travis. It's we're happy to do it. That's why we're here. We appreciate you all showing up every time, because that's a big part of it.
All right. Well, I'm going to popcorn to Amy Giddish. Hey, Amy.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks. I'm Amy from Warrior Canine Connection. We enlist the veterans in the Veterans Treatment Court to help us train service dogs for fellow veterans. So we are just another one of those community partners, much like Pivot Point, who offer them an alternative to community service. So we've been around with Veterans Treatment Court since probably 2018. Yep, that sounds about right. And the veterans involved in the court system can then work with us, learning how to train service dogs and then giving back to fellow veterans. So we have service dogs in training in court with them every other Friday. They're learning all of the skills and the tasks and the patience and consistency and emotional regulation that it takes to raise service dogs every day that they come and work with us. And I couldn't be prouder to have Warrior Canine Connection as a partner for Veterans Treatment Court. It is very much like a family. In the years that I have been there, I've seen that firsthand. I've been blessed and very privileged to be able to witness Travis's journey also throughout his whole Veterans Treatment Court. So just can't say enough wonderful things about Judge Pope and the VTC team and Kevin. Thank you. And I'm gonna obviously popcorn it over to Robin Martin if she's still on here. Of course she is.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you, Kevin, Judge Pope, Travis, and team. I have been lucky enough to be involved with Warrior Canine Connection. I am a volunteer. I have been volunteering since 2011, and I had the opportunity to volunteer through my prior job, which was Home Depot, and in building out. But I have also been involved with veterans in my career. I was an Army nurse. I worked at Walter Reed for 12 years. I was an intensive care nurse. And unfortunately, I got to see the Kevins of the world come in, and the Travises, and all those who were so severely wounded that they came to us. And I'd like to think that I gave them a measure of comfort while they were there. And I feel bad that they were, my words only, kind of kicked to the curb when all the treatment was completed. so that they could find their own way through it. And I'm very happy about Veterans Treatment Court and the fact that we're able to recover these veterans and get them back. And I get to see it every day. I get to see the Travises and the other veterans, and even Kevin yourself, the change. I am in awe, and I have said it multiple times, listening to you talk and watching what you do for our veterans and our fellow veterans and their families and everyone that's out there, and our interaction with them every day. It's been amazing, and I am very thankful to be a part of it. I am so glad that I was able to continue with Warrior Canine Connections when I moved from Maryland to South Carolina. And I look forward every day. And Amy will tell you, can I come in the next day? Because I enjoy working with the guys, and it's my way of giving back to them. Now that I am no longer a part of their recovery, and this is my way of giving back and continuing their recovery. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Robin. And I can vouch that you definitely provided solace and healing and so much more. I cannot speak enough praise for the nursing staff at Walter Reed. World-class care, truly. That's where our presidents go. And yeah, so you are amongst an elite few. So thank you, Robin. So it is 8:26, and we are mindful of everyone's time. I know we have a few that we haven't spoken with. I see we have Catherine Houghton. She is our Veterans Justice Outreach on the team. How you doing, Catherine?
I'm good. I was a little late, but Travis, it's good to see you, and Kevin and Judge. Glad to be here. I did want to mention just one thing, Roxanne, for the veterans that you work with in the Charlotte area. If they're eligible for VA care, while there's not a veterans court, there is a dedicated social work duo in Salisbury, and they cover those counties, Mecklenburg, and I'm happy to share their contact information. That they can kind of be a support person. I'm not familiar with the resources for veterans specifically in that area, but if you have folks that maybe need specialized treatment or just community resources kind of past what you do with them, I'm happy to share their contact information with you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'd like to get that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And just want to say it's such a highlight of my social work career, just being with Veterans Treatment Court. It's a really unique program, and it's a great team, and it's really, it's just really a great program, and so proud of Travis and really all of our veterans. It's a tough thing to do, and I can't say that enough. It's a lot of change, and just happy to be here tonight and happy to be a part of the VTC.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you, Catherine. Well, I'm gonna just say thank you to everyone that came this evening. Thank you, Judge Pope and Travis. Thank you so much. I mean, it's the trauma is real, right? And we see this every day. We see the consequences of the trauma, and it's passed through generations. And this is really the work of disrupting the spread of it. This is important work, and everyone here is doing it. Just by showing up is proof of your commitment to service in whatever your sphere is. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. And yeah, Travis, truly, we are in awe of you and appreciate just really serving as the example of the potential for change that's possible. And that's what I love, is in this program, the other veterans are watching each other, right? It's not with words, they're watching. and they're seeing, what is Travis doing? How is he acting? What is he saying? And this is what I get to hear every day. And the veterans are telling me, damn, I look up to Travis, right? That dude turned his life around. That dude, I know when he says something, he means it, right? To live a principled life of character. And that's that tribe. That's not something I can do. Judge can't do it. And that is really the hard work of the veterans. So anyways, just wanted to end on that, say thank you to everyone again. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if any questions or can be of support.
Thank you again, Kevin. I was just going to say, if you did want to throw your contact information, if you were comfortable with it, up on the group chat so that people could screen grab that and take that down for any. Oh, there you go. I'm going to stop rambling then. Perfect. I appreciate that as well. It's great to see all of you. It's 8:31. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for showing up. I mean that sincerely and individually to each and every one of you. Thank you for showing up and doing what you do and how you do it. I'm going to press stop recording, and I'm going to kind of linger to see if anyone has any last minute questions, and then probably wrap it up at about 8:35 and just end the meeting for everybody. So you're welcome to hang out for a little bit. And if it's way past your dinner time, I appreciate that as well.
Matthew, Kevin, and and other veterans, including Travis, are willing to do a presentation to a civic club or any type of group that you want to spread the word about Veteran Treatment Court. So if anybody that's with us tonight would like us to do a presentation, we're glad to do that. And we'll fit it into the schedule, whatever we need to do to get the word out about this non-adversarial project.
Awesome. Noted. I appreciate you you clarifying on that. I won't be offended if people just leave without saying goodbye and doing the Zoom wave, but I'm going to linger for another 3 minutes and then shut down the meeting. Thanks again.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.